Mr. Wilander, you were once #1 in the world. You are a countryman and successor to legend Bjorn Borg. How do those details feel?
Well, I'm very proud to be following in his footsteps, for sure. I would have never been a great tennis player if it wasn't for Bjorn Borg. He's the one that inspired all young Swedish players. I started playing tennis before he was famous, so I would have been a player, but he showed us that it's possible to come from a small country and be the best in the world. And because of he's easy to follow, he never made mistakes. He was always physically 100%, and he never complained. So okay, that's what you have to do to play tennis, and that's the winning recipe.
So, just like you said, how could Sweden produce two of the world's best tennis players during those years?
Well, I think it has to do with Sweden is quite team-oriented. We have always had a great ice hockey team. We've always been good in European football. And as tennis players, it's an individual sport, but we were always in different teams and we were helping each other out, and the competition between players in Sweden was big, of course, in Sweden, but as soon as we went to Europe, then we all played as a team, and I think that's the main reason, apart from Bjorn Borg. Bjorn Borg is the obvious reason.
And now my next question is it annoying to be always compared to Borg?
No, well, not now. Not now. It used to be a little bit annoying when I was very young, and they would say, "Oh, there comes the new Bjorn Borg," and I always said, "There's obviously only one Bjorn Borg. There's no chance of me following his career." But at the same time, he made it easy for us. We saw him win on TV with a certain style, and we said, okay, that's how you play tennis. And it turned out that Bjorn Borg was most probably 10 years ahead of his time when it comes to the technique and the way you hit a tennis ball. So Sweden was the first country to play with two-handed backhands and topspin on both sides, and I think that's the main technical reason.
So what do you think about tennis today compared to back then?
I think it's a completely different sport, actually. I think today the professional players, most of them have grown up playing only tennis. They've gone to tennis schools, tennis academies. My generation, we played tennis because we thought it was fun, and there was a court and nobody's using it, so I'm going to play tennis. Tennis today is one player and then 3 or 4 people in their team, and in our day some players had one coach, nobody else, and most players didn't have a coach. So it's not comparable really, but the bottom line is that tennis is a great lesson in life, and hopefully the players today are experiencing the same benefits from tennis, being a problem-solving situation, and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but you learn from your mistakes, and that's life.
Yes. So did you know, at which time did you know that you wanted to stop playing tennis, at least professionally?
The day that you go onto the court and you are 100% ready to play, and then something happens, and then you hit a shot and you don't understand why I hit it over there when I should have gone over there, and you stop feeling the situation, because tennis is a very fast sport, and it's very difficult to be logical intelligence all the time, so a lot of it is about feel and vision, creativity, and when you lose concentration and you hit shots that you realize that I'm not playing with my heart anymore, and that's a horrible feeling, and that's when you need to take a break, and then hopefully the feeling comes back.
You had won 7 singles Grand Slam titles and 1 doubles. How do you view this after all this time, after taking time off from playing?
I mean, for us, the Grand Slams is basically our World Championships or the Olympics. So you were the best player in the world on that surface in that city for 2 weeks, and it happened to me 7 times. So that's big. For me as a player, it was all about winning the big tournaments. But the thing that people recognize more than winning Grand Slams is having been world #1. If I go into a taxi cab and we start talking about tennis and I say I used to be world #1, the guy will pull over to the side and really, I have a world #1. If I say I am the US Open champion, it's not the same weight to the common population. But for me and the players, I think it's more about winning Grand Slams, being the best in the world at a specific moment.
Do you know our countryman and tennis hero, Jean-Julien Royer?
Of course.
And what do you think about Curaçao?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, with Royer, it's incredible that you can come from a small island like Curaçao and be one of the best tennis players in the world in a sport that's global. Tennis is a very, very difficult sport to be a professional in. We have very few players. There's maybe 300, 400 players that can survive, and if you compare that to other sports, it's a very small number. So to have somebody like Roger is inspiration. It shows the world of sports that as a tennis player, if you have the right attitude and you have the heart, you can come from anywhere. You don't need to be in a tennis academy. You don't need to even have great coaches. You just need a ball and a racket, and you create confidence and you create your own style. So I think that's why I like going to places like Curaçao, because you never know. You never know where the next superstar is going to come from, or the next professional, and every professional athlete is an inspiration to a lot of young kids, and that can put them on a path in life that is more positive than maybe other paths. So we keep traveling and promoting the game because, again, really we can have the next Wimbledon champion here from Curaçao. It's not an impossibility.
So you've been giving some clinics thus far, and how do you feel about the youth playing tennis here in Curaçao?
There's a huge difference between kids or youth from a smaller place, because they're not so programmed. They are free spirits. They most probably have less lessons with a coach. There's most probably less pressure from parents. So I think there's a spirit that it's fun. For them it's fun, and you notice that when you do a clinics, you notice that they're here because they're having fun. I do clinics in other big cities and where the only sport they play is tennis, and sometimes you have kids that they don't enjoy it. So again, this is a great environment. It's a great environment for the mind to become a great individual athlete, to come from a small place, no pressure, but it has to come from inside. You have to have your own drive, but
the own fuel to
exactly. But the chances of being disturbed or destroyed by the outside people is smaller than in a small place like Curaçao. So I think, really, I'm serious, the next champion can come from anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter if it's a big city or a small island.
So wonderful. And just to finish it off, what do you take out from this sort of experience of teaching and mentoring young kids here in Curaçao and in the world? I
always take out that I guess you're always a little bit surprised that you arrive in Curaçao, and there's a bunch of tennis clubs, and there's, I don't know, 50 to 100 kids that are there for our clinics, and wow, I never realized that tennis was even a sport in a place like Curaçao. So I think it makes you feel good. It makes you realize that you are that not personally, but as a tennis player, you are an inspiration to young people. So that makes you feel good, you know. And tennis has given us everything. I met my wife at a tennis tournament. I have 4 kids because of my wife. Everything is come from tennis for me. So for us, we can never ever give back to the sport what the sport has given to us.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Wilander, for this interview.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.